where I thought that my work had to be serious. And so I've just been taking the opportunity to try and maybe add other elements to it and see how it looks and how I like it. And if you go to the next slide. Oh, this should be a video, so you should be able to play it. This piece is actually older. It's from my first residency in 2017, but it takes characters that were in my sketchbook. I redrew them in a digital tablet and printed them out, and I had them laid out on a table with this little drawing I made. And I just wanted to kind of show that I wanted to play with this idea of narrative and daydreaming. So you can see how, you can play with the different characters and where they end up. And sometimes I would mess around with it in my own time and just see how, like, oh, this could be used here, but then, oh, I could also make this guy, like, not sitting on my shoulder, but he could be riding the dinosaur, like that sort of thing. So it's very early stages, but I do very much like the idea of maybe having work that plays with narrative, but also has an ability for the viewer to interact and to kind of feel like they're a part of the image, or that they have the, I guess, it's accessible to them, I guess. And so if you go to the next slide. This is a work in progress. I've gotten a bit more done since then, but I just wanted to show that this is kind of expanding on that idea. And I was just testing with different characters on the page, but this is a memory of my basement, which was where my brother and I spent a lot of time. And that basement flooded completely. And so it's a place that isn't accessible to me anymore, but I'm tied to it. And so I'm trying to kind of recreate this old space, like this feeling of something that I've lost but is dear to me. And it's, I guess with these characters, it feels like it's this totally imaginary place because it doesn't exist to me anymore. But I'm trying to make light of it and make it a fun image. And then to the next slide. I'll try to go through these quickly because I don't want to take too much more time, but I am exploring, I think, a lot of character design, and with my sketchbooks, I think I've always been tied to figures just because I like thinking about emotion and narrative in a way. You can go to the next. And so I like the idea of trying to create stories from objects or from memories and trying to create interesting images from them. Right now I'm doing a lot of them in my sketchbook. I'm considering taking images like this one and making them large-scale paintings or drawings. We'll see. With this one, this is actually inspired from an object that I still have. I can bring it out. I was just thinking it's kind of like humorous to me that I put a lot of emotional attachment to this object. This is a little piggy bank that I bought from the dollar store when I was like 10, and I dropped it. And so I didn't want to get rid of it. I poorly glued it back together with a hot glue gun. And I think it's kind of funny, and I still don't want to get rid of it. And I remember telling myself years ago, even when I was younger, I was like, well, I'll save it so that I can make art with it or something, and I would just like look at it and I was like, I'm not going to throw it out. I'm just going to make art with it one day. And so this was kind of like my first attempt at doing so. So I kind of created this silly narrative of these three mice that come to break into this piggy bank, or so they think, and then are confused as to why there's nothing inside and why would they be keeping this treasured object if there was no money inside, because I never kept money in that piggy bank anyway. I just thought it was cute, but I loved it. It was precious to me. So that was just, the result of that line of thinking. Next slide. Other avenues, I've just been taking some of my sketchbook drawings and making them into screen prints. I don't have access to screen printing facilities at the moment, so these are older works, but I would definitely pursue this again in the future. I think it also works with my my work that was kind of like technologically glitched as well, because I could always like create multiple layers. Yes, I do sketch daily. Well, almost every day. Sometimes days get the best of you, but I do pretty much draw a lot. Next slide. This is kind of combining different elements. So it has the appearance of glitched imagery, but I'm not really thinking of glitches or misinformation. I'm actually reflecting a lot on my grandmother and my relationship with her, how I didn't really know too much about her, but I kept learning more stories about her after she passed and how we're actually very similar people. The pattern of the flooring, the carpet, is the pattern of a shirt and skirt that was passed down to me from her. Some of the objects in the image are from her. And then if you look in the mirror, that mask that's hanging on the wall, that's the mask from the previous slide that was in the sketchbook drawing. So I'm trying to tie together different imagery that's pulled from, I think I'm trying to do a lot of self-reflection on who I am and what has influenced me and the things that matter. So this piece was very personal as I thought about those things. Next. Okay, so these are, I think, the last few. I'm taking these sketchbook drawings, which again are tied a lot to my childhood, and I'm trying to maybe learn how to play with them digitally or in other ways. So these are two drawings in my sketchbook that have a lot of imagery that relate to my childhood and the things that I played with. And if you go to the next slide, here they are, like digitally colored in Photoshop. I'm still learning how to color in Photoshop, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm hoping to make a larger series with these characters. The point of them is I wanted to exaggerate this feeling that you get as a child when you're playing with your toys and with your imagination. You're kind of running wild and you feel this sense of feeling, amazing and cool. And so I wanted to give them that sense of feeling like this is how amazing they are, and I wanted to make sure that they were covered head to toe. So that way, someone, regardless of their age or gender or color of their skin, could put themselves into this character. Because I understand, like, growing up with a lot of vet media, sometimes it's catered to certain audiences or they look a certain way. So I wanted it to be as inclusive as possible. And if you go to the next slide. Oh, this is something I just finished, but I'm still working on. So this is a drawing from my sketchbook on the right that I drew partially from life, partially from photo, but it was abstracting a destroyed sculpture that I saw in a museum. So what I did a couple months ago during quarantine, I used a projector to blow it up larger scale, and then I created a more refined drawing with graphite. So the result is on the left. And then if you go to the following slide, I took a photo and now I'm playing with it in Photoshop and just trying to see how many ways I can distort it. And my goal is to just play with 100 different methods of how to distort the head. Oh, could you go to, oh yes, perfect, thank you. So you can see I've only done 10 so far. So I'm trying to teach myself more of how to use Photoshop and explore the different ways that I can take this one element of a hand-drawn image and play with it in the computer. And I'm thinking that if I create a wide selection of images, I can pull from some of my favorites and then maybe print it and then draw on top of that printed image and then take it back into the computer. And I'm hoping to create this back and forth dialogue between analog and digital methods of making. So I believe that's the last one. If you go to the next slide, I think that was it. Yep, that's it. So thank you for having me on this talk, Gary. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.